What do you think about that in the opener there, that both Pep and Arteta claim, look, yeah, it's a massive game, but it's not a title decider?
No, I think it is if Man City win. I think it isn't if Arsenal win. But I think it gives Arsenal a shot in the arm and enables them to recover from the last three results that have been disappointing for them. And they've managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, or draws from the jaws of victory on 2 occasions.
Yeah.
So I think for Man City, if Man City land this blow and win this game, they're in control of their own destiny. They've already the tables have turned. Man City are the ones that are in control of their own destiny, and Arsenal are not. So by definition, if Man City win their games in hand over Arsenal and would say draw this game at the Etihad, Man City would still win the league, wouldn't they?
Sure. Simon, just in the passing, actually, we've looked at some of the figures, and those who say, well, Manchester City, they've been able to spend a lot more money than the likes of Arsenal or anybody else in the last decade. From the 2013-14 season to now, Manchester City's net spend is only 100 million more than Arsenal.
Yeah.
In the last decade, Manchester City's net spend, 767 million, Simon. Mm-hmm. Arsenal's 666. Manchester United, $1 billion.
Yes, I understand that. And of course, in recent seasons, we've seen Manchester City dispose of a significant amount of players to be able to create those outcomes. If you distill it down into 5-year breaks rather than 10-year breaks, you'll find in the first 5 years, Man City will have blown everybody out of the water for spending. But in the last 5 years, you'll see that they've sold quite a significant amount of players.
Yeah.
And that's given them a better position. And that's what they should be doing. And Arsenal, typically, up until about 2 years ago, weren't a football club that traded players to be able to give themselves some form of profitability as a business. So the statistics are the statistics.
Sure.
But if you can cut and slice and dice them any way you want. Prior to what I believe is now the last 3 or 4 years, Manchester City have operated in a certain way. It's got them governed. It's got them caught in the governance of financial fair play. It's got them sanctioned for it, and I believe they should be sanctioned again. But the last 3 or 4 years, I think Manchester City have changed their style of operation. They're operating in a different fashion, and it's a fair argument to advance. But again, it's how you slice and dice it. But over the 10-year, if you want to do it over the 10-year decade, then the figures are the figures, aren't they?
The figures are the figures. I mean, in terms of trophies, you can see what City have got for their money, Danny. I mean, serial winners. Arsenal, having spent 666 billion in the last decade, while now million, I beg your pardon. Now billion, that would be a hell of a net spend. Arsenal not far behind City, but now it's paying dividends because it's put them in a challenging position.
Yeah, I think it's obvious you need a good amount of funding to compete at the top level, but it's also very obvious that you need a hell of a good coach to put that jigsaw puzzle together. I mean, Chelsea more recently obviously is a great example of spending a lot of money and still struggling. So you need lots of things in place, and good recruitment also comes into that, doesn't it? Because if you're going to allow a player to leave who's of good quality and you don't get the next one right, all of a sudden you're making the team weaker. So I think. Yeah, I agree with Simon to a point. You can, with figures, make it look however you want to look to suit your narrative generally, if you use the years, however, to suit your need.
It'd be interesting to see if we did another statistic, not to disarm a statistic, because in fairness, Man City fans will constantly suggest that people have an agenda against them. And if you have to be fair, if the figures over the last decade suggest that, they suggest that. Yeah. I wonder what the wage bills determine as well. Because I think that Arsenal's wage bill at times would have been a lot lower than Man City's, but also at times it would probably have been higher because of their profligacy. When you're prepared to pay people like Aubameyang the kind of salary that you paid him and got no outcome from it, when you're prepared to pay Ozil the kind of salaries that you paid him at times when Arsenal were going through a period of flux from one management to another. Yeah. But notwithstanding that, over a 10-year period, if that's how we're going to define it, then the argument is very just. The Man City have got themselves in a position where they are now a football club that economically operates in a slightly different fashion than the one they started with.
That's right. It's quite an eye-opener. So the net spend of Manchester City is only £100 million more than Arsenal.
Yeah, I think. But here's another alternative scenario.
Go on.
If you're buying all the best players in the world and are able to buy them repeatedly, at some point you're going to be able to sell them as well. So if you're spending a lot of money on your gross spend, right, and then you've got all these players, this great big, butter mountain of very talented players, you're going to be able to resell them as well.
Well, also, very few don't improve under Pep.
This is it. Leroy Sané.
But the wage bill is a great example of where these things can be skewed, because looking at the net spend of what you buy on what you spend on players and that needs to be linked to the wage bills.
Okay.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.